All right, to update the shipping date on this, it's really easy. You just highlight the line items you want to change, and let's just say that you're changing all of these except for this one right here. You just click that, then you're going to click Update Estimated Ship Date, and it's no longer June 2nd, it is July 2nd. That's kind of how things are going lately. And if you look, June 2nd and July 2nd. So what ends up happening over here? We'll just hit search, and this will update this, and you see July 2nd, July 2nd, June 2nd, July 2nd. That's all it takes to show your customer the updated shipping information. And it can be very easy to set up a trigger that sends out kind of maybe on a daily basis what this, if there's been any updates to the estimated shipping date on anything, it'll send the customer a summarized email of things that change. That really isn't very difficult to do at all. So here we are. We have PO 218. What happens from here? So let's go back to this. We've got the sales order, shows this total amount, shows the PO amount, right? The difference between these two are the margin. So the next thing in order, beyond checking our shipping updates and updating the customer, is at some point we're going to get billed for this, and that's what the total AP amount is going to be. And it's going to let you know it's kind of a burn down of this PO, and you're going to be able to see the total invoice amount. So if you're the back office team, it's kind of a quick glance at what you need to do next. So there are other products that we've used before, and it was a bit of a mess trying to figure out, like, what do I do with this? What happens next? And unfortunately, this process of like sent to accounting, I sent POs, or I rejected it, and the order's on back order, or it's shipped. Like, this is not always lateral because some items might ship and some things might still stay on back order. So this kind of gives you a quick glance of what to do next. So let's kind of simulate, in this case, PO 218 got an invoice that got emailed into invoices at VARCPQ.com. And let's take a look and see what happens from there. So I have kind of like a queue in here, and these vendor invoices, in this case, this is a simulated one, and it says, hey, vendor invoice number 3, it's due on the 6th of May, and hey, this is some stuff that came in here, and there's some attachments in here. This is just a random attachment I put in here. And I'm going to kind of delete this out because this wouldn't be set this way, so forgive me. All right, so what happens, right? I've got an invoice from a customer, and it's for PO 218 that we just discussed. What would I do? Well, I'm going to create a payable invoice from it. And the payable invoice, in this case, this is my invoice 123, invoice 111222, and it's due on 9/30, right? And this is just so that you make sure you process these on time. And we happen to know it goes to PO 218, but if it was a different one, you just search for it and type it in here, and away you go. All right, so what ends up happening here is it's going to take me to this accounts payable invoice that we created. I know this is a lot of terminology. This will make a lot more sense. Basically, what you're doing here is you're linking that invoice you just got to the PO. And when you do that, it's going to allow you to add in the PO line items so that you can burn this PO down. So when I click PO line items in here, I'm going to see everything that's on that PO. And if I just highlight everything and hit save, away I go, and life is good, and it zeroes that PO out. But in this case, let's just say, hypothetically, that I only got 2,500 of these things, right? So I'm going to click save. And what you're going to see, if I go to PO 218, is there's some remaining. Total AP amount is $26,000. And remaining on the PO is $31,000. What does that look like on the sales order? So I've got my total PO, and I've got $26,000 that's been invoiced against it. So I've got about $5,000, $6,000 of invoice amount remaining. Okay. So if I go back and I click this PO that I've got in here, and I can see the accounts payable invoice linked to it, which is great. What you also see in here is a variance amount. In this case, a variance is 0 because when I added those line items on there, I got invoiced for the exact same unit cost that was on my PO because it populates that by default. Now, I can add this to this purchase order in here. 2,500 of those things were already invoiced against me. In this particular case, though, for some reason, these things went up a little bit. Cost increased. Nothing we can do about it. Right? The world is problematic, and hit save. So what you're going to see is now we have a $300 variance amount. Okay, so basically the variance amount is the amount that goes above or below what was on your PO. Right? If it goes below, it'll be a negative variance amount. If it goes above, it's going to be a positive variance amount. So you were invoiced $300 more than what was on your PO. So what are you going to do about it? In addition to that, if you get a non-PO line item, let's say that you got invoiced for some shipping and handling on here, and you have not, you didn't include it on your PO. So you can say, hey, look, I got charged a $200 shipping fee, only one of those, fee not included on quote approved by sales rep. This happens all the time. So now you're going to see the variance amount is going to go up even more because I added that $200. So what's interesting about this is if I go back to the PO, I've got the total PO is this dollar amount in here. And it shows me the remaining for AP amount is negative $500. So that's bad. So I've gone beyond that PO. And this will allow you to run reports against this purchase order so you can kind of get an idea on what's standing out. Again, if I go back to the sales order, I see that my total amount is this, my total PO amount is this, but I went $500 over that. It's a little bit of a problem. And the variance amount is actually calculated on here so that you can run reports against the sales orders as well to figure out what's going on. Well, you notice right in here, though, I haven't invoiced the customer for this, right? So you should kind of be thinking, oh my gosh, I should invoice the customer. But I also need to also do a shipment notice so I can send an update to the customer. So how do I do that? I go to shipping and invoices right here. Again, very similar to what it was like on my purchase orders when I generated it. And what this will allow it to do, this is actually not supposed to show up. So what it's going to allow to do though is I can generate a invoice or shipment, or I can do both at the exact same time because maybe everything shipped and I got invoiced all at the same time. So that's why this button create both is in here. But just for the sake of conversation, I'm going to create the shipment and then we're going to look at the shipment real quick. So you'll see the shipment shows up right here. And what you do in here is you're going to put the tracking number in, and if it's FedEx, it's 1Z something blah 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 blah, and the shipment date. I know that it shipped actually on Friday, so I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to say FedEx, and if it was a different carrier, I'd put that in, and I hit save. The next thing though, and I'm not going to do this in here because it'll actually email, well, I'm the shipping contact. So if I go to shipping process, mark that as a status, it's actually going to send a email saying like, hey, Devin Henderson, a shipping update for you right here. And it's also going to have a link to this portal in here, as you see in here, so that you notice the shipment is in here, it's FedEx and all these things shipped. If I click this, it'll actually take you to FedEx and allow you to track this whole shipment. Pretty great. We really love this portal. It saves a lot of back and forth conversation with customers because the customers want to be able to see this in real time and have updates. So it allows them to do that. All right, back to the sales order. I have still got to generate that invoice. So I can go over here and generate that invoice. I can invoice for the whole thing or the units available for invoice. I'm going to change this to 2,500 maybe in here, and it's going to create an invoice for all of these things in here. It won't let you invoice for something that doesn't have a quantity available, so even if I check the shipping fee, it's not going to let me do that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and invoice the whole thing, and you're going to see my invoice right here for the total amount. Now, we still end up eating that $500, just to be clear, and all I got to do is click Generate Invoice, and my invoice is right here. It's really, really fast. the idea is that you then email this out to your customer and say, hey, here we go. We need to do this stuff. So this is the stuff that gets printed on here by default. This is 100% editable. You can edit the default, so it's got it on there from there forward. But you kind of get the idea. And then if you look at your sales order, my amount, my invoice amount, PO, basically at this point you would close the sales order out and you'd be done with it. You wouldn't see it anymore. So that's kind of the sales order process in itself. Now, some of the things that I did skip over is we actually have a shipping and tracking API that checks Ingram Micro, Synix, and Arrow. And what it does is it actually runs every 4 hours or 12 hours, however you set it up. And what it's going to do is every open invoice for Ingram, Synix, or Arrow, it's actually going to go through and check, like, hey, is the estimated ship changed? Did something ship on my order? Anything like that. If something shipped on the order, it'll actually create the shipments in here. You don't have to do anything. And it will update the information and pull down the serial numbers for all the different assets that the customer purchased if the serial numbers are available. And it'll pull down all the tracking information. So the real benefit of that is from a shipping logistics standpoint, you don't have to keep track of that stuff anymore. And you really only have to do the kind of anything that doesn't have an API, you're going to have to get your shipping and logistics updates. And if for some reason some order doesn't get updated in the tracking portal from one of the distributor sites, you'd have to create that manually. But you would see, in this case, let me show you kind of a little drop down here. You would see a sales order, maybe the shipment is in here, or maybe something did get shipped because the API got it, and it says, hey, look, these sales orders need invoice because shipments have gone in here, or I got a bill before I've even bothered to invoice or create a shipment, and so it lets you know, like, do something with this. You need to invoice these things. So really, really, really straightforward. And we believe that this will make your sales reps really happy because if you set this up properly, way we've got this set up is your sales rep can actually see the sales orders. They can see the invoices but can't edit them at all. And they can also see the shipments and the purchase orders. So you don't have to worry about back and forth conversation between your sales team and your back office accounting team worrying about how they're going to go through and process their orders or follow up on things. You see we have a next steps on here on the sales order. In this case, it could be like, hey, close this thing out, right? I complete this thing and I'm done. Sales order is closed. And it would take it out of the queue of things to work on. So anyway, that is VARCPQ.